Hi, Christian Devotional author and speaker Christy Birchfield here. Today we're looking at the next in the Beatitudes. Last week we looked at being poor in spirit and how those are blessed by being able to receive the kingdom of heaven. Well, if we look today, Matthew chapter 5 verse 4 talks about blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. It's an interesting word choice to me because the word mourn is sadness and grief, but it's a very specific type of sadness and grief. It refers to that of a loss. There's been some type of death, some type of loss. When you mourn something, you obviously are sad about that. So why would the people be mourning? Well, I can tell you, in that day and time, and even in today's day and time, Jews and the Jewish people have a very specific idea of what it means to mourn for people when someone passes away. There's a website in the comments section here that indicates where you can go to and learn more about the Jewish mourning customs and what all is involved with that. But needless to say, it's very specific. There's a very strong, drawn out process on how they view mourning. So this would have resonated with the Jewish people that Jesus was speaking to. And I can certainly tell you, blessed wasn't exactly what they would have had in mind when they thought of mourning. Now, this brings to the forefront a very interesting thought, because last week we talked about being poor in spirit. Well, as we look at being poor in spirit, we talked about the fact that that's sacrificing yourself, sacrificing all that you are to God so that way you can receive the kingdom of heaven. Well, once we sacrifice something, now we have a loss. So blessed are those who mourn this loss. Well, the other interesting part Paul talks about in Galatians chapter 2 verse 20. It says, I have been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself up for me. I have been crucified with Christ. Yes, I've been poor in spirit. I've sacrificed myself. There's been a loss. But that loss was that Jesus Christ, who didn't deserve to die, died. Blessed are those who mourn. When we recognize and mourn the loss and what our sin, the results of our sin, did to Jesus, then we can understand and move on to that second part of that verse. For they are comforted. What does it mean to be comforted? Paul mentioned that in the same verse, Galatians 2:20. I've been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. What better way to be comforted than having the living Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, living in and through us every minute of every single day? He is the great comforter. He is the one who through him, he lives in us and is able to comfort us. That's how we experience true comfort. When we recognize that his death, needless as it seemingly was, for he certainly was guilty of nothing, was truly needful because we needed the comfort. It's one of the great things about these Beatitudes is they build one on the other to teach us how best to live the Christian life. How can we understand and go through what we need to each and every day to be able to show God that we love him? Step one is we have to realize that we have to sacrifice ourselves. We need to become poor in spirit because that's how we receive the kingdom of heaven. Step two, we need to understand the price that Jesus paid and mourn for the loss that he had. And as through that, then we are able to truly find comfort from the only one who can give comfort in the first place, Jesus Christ. Join me next week as we continue this through the Beatitudes and take a look at meekness and how meekness plays a part in what we do every day. Thank you so much. I pray that God will continue to bless you as you live in the world and live out the word. Thanks.